Welcome back to part 2 of altering this little golden book. If you missed part 1 of how we got the spine in here and how we built supports inside, then please go back and find part 1 and watch that part first. I will put a link in the description also of how to find that. So the next thing we're going to do is get rid of the covering up this ugly tape that we have hanging out here. And I'm going to tuck these up and glue those ends, I believe. It's not necessary. You could let them hang, but I want to cover up that raw edge that's right there. So I am going to glue those right there before we do anything else. And for that, I am going to use my wet glue. I'm using the 3-in-1 again. So I'm going to be generous with it here. And it is going to get covered up, so I'm not going to worry too much about any blobs of glue or smoothing out the glue. And do the same thing here. Just pull that up. The raw edges can hang out. Okay. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use this same fabric that I used for the spine. You could change it up if you want something different on the inside. Okay, so you can see that the words Tyvek through this material. If you had, if you're using material that had more of a condensed print on it, you probably would not see that. If it does not bother you, you can let it go. You could take some white acrylic paint and just dab it on there just to set that back a little bit. Or what I'm going to do is I have just a scrap piece of muslin. I'm just going to glue that down first. It doesn't cover the whole thing. And then I'm going to put this over the top and let it come out beyond what the scrap piece is. So this Tyvek is really very glossy and slippery. So I do like to I just have like a little sanding stick. You could take an emery board just to scuff it up a little bit, just to make sure that your glue is going to adhere well to it. Again, probably doesn't look like much from on the camera, but it is just taking off a little bit of that gloss and just scuffing it up a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to put just this scrappy piece down first, just to hide a little bit of that. Using the wet glue again for this. I don't know that I would trust a glue stick. So I'm just going to be generous with it. And then you can use your finger or just smear it out, smooth it out with a paintbrush. For the good piece, I am going to want it to go out beyond what you can see a little bit of the Tyvek tape there yet. So I do want it to go beyond the scrap piece that I put down and beyond this. So I'm going to want it to go about a 1/2 inch past that on each side. I don't want to cover this up. You could, of course, you could put a piece of fabric across this whole thing, or you could put end papers and cover all of this up, but this is iconic to the book, so I do want to leave that showing. So I'm going to go approximately a 1/2 inch beyond where the edges of the Tyvek tape are. Okay, I'm going to get that glued on in the same way that I glued on the scrap piece, and I will be right back. Now that I have that glued down, I want to find where the book bends and just score it a little bit there. And the same thing on this side. You could also use Mod Podge at this point too. Mod Podge, I always say that wrong. You could always use that at this step also on the fabric. I would make sure I had the matte though and not the glossy. When I put it on, I did leave on purpose, I left a fringe of the fabric hang out over the top just because I like that look. If you don't like that look, feel free to make it even right at the edge there. And then we will turn it over, and I'm going to trim this end as well. So this is what we have so far. We got the fringes hanging out the top. We have our spine done from part 1. We have the inside now covered and ready to go. So the next part is going to be getting our signature papers ready to go. And we have the 2 signatures from the book. And also a reminder, if you didn't number these with a pencil very lightly in the corner from part 1, you want to go ahead and do that before we start messing with them and getting some papers added in there. So I'm going to take some time and go through my Christmas papers and any other papers that I think might go well with this particular little golden book. And what I usually do is just kind of thumb through the book and get an overall feeling for the colors. So we're seeing a lot of navy, a lot of greens, but not a real bright green. Yellows here and there, and then of course the brown and the red from the deer and Santa. But when you just thumb through, the overall feeling you're getting is the greens and the blues with some hints of red. So keeping that in mind as I'm looking through my paper stash to see what I might want to add into the signatures. So I'm going to do that next, and I won't put you through me rummaging through all of my papers, but I'll see what I can find, and then we will start putting this thing together. Okay, I did get some papers together here for the 2 signatures, and I will go over that and show you what I found in a little bit. But first I thought we'd go ahead and I would show you how to get the holes punched here for your signatures. So I made a template. So if you remember, the spine that I made was 1.5 inches. You could have made yours even larger to accommodate more signatures if you wanted to. So I made myself a little template here, and then I write on it that it's for a 1.5 inch spine. It was for a little golden book, and I put the measurements of this particular book, and then I will keep this so the next time I make one of these, I don't have to go through it again. So I will show you how I made this. This is just like a cardstock. This is, I think, a piece of watercolor paper. So the first thing you do is, of course, cut it to the 1.5 inches and cut it to the height of your book. Then you want to take it and fold it in half. And I'm gonna get you don't have to do this part, I'm just doing it so you can see the fold. So there's the fold that is in half. Then I'm going to fold this end up to meet that fold. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera. Fold that down. Again, you don't need to do that part. Oops, I did it on the wrong side anyway. Okay, so there we have 2 folds, and then you're going to do the same thing. Fold the other end up to meet that middle fold. This is just the way I do it. You can, of course, get in there and measure if you want, but the least amount of time I have to use a ruler, the better. Okay. So now we have these 3 folds that are going to show us where to place our signatures. Okay, then there's 2 different ways you can do this next part. You can fold this in half, so you get a line down the middle, and then you can fold in up to that line. And then where you have, I'm gonna do it this way a second. Then where you have where this line, this fold and this fold intersect, you would put a dot. So you can do it that way and just do the same thing on the other side, or you can just use the ruler and come in on this line, come in about a ½ inch. I'm sorry, about a ¼ of an inch from the edge, and just put a mark. Right on that fold. Okay. All right, then I have an awl, and I just had picked this up at an antique place. If you have any places like that that have tools, usually these are easy to be found, or you can just use anything you have that would poke a hole. And I'm going to use my text block here instead of doing it right on my table. And these don't have to be exact, but just poke a hole there. And I just make sure it's gone through. Do the same thing for all the holes. You're going to lay your template in there. And then I usually just fold it up to make sure that it's a good fit, which it is. And then let's see if this is going to work. And then just make a mark down through each of these holes. Okay, so we have our marks where we know we're going to have to punch a hole. You are going to need a text block or a piece of wood or something underneath so that you don't poke directly into your table. And you're going to put the awl on your dot and then just press and twist until you poke through the book. I need to stand up to do it, so I'm going to stop the camera right here, and I will come back when I have them all poked through. Once you have them poked through, you do want to turn it over and poke through again from this side. I did all of them but this one. Okay, so we have those ready for our signatures. I got signature 1 put together, so we can take a quick run through that so you can see what I did. Of course, we're starting with the title page. Cut everything down to size. I rounded the corners just because on here they're kind of rounded, but you would not have to. But then you may want to cut your pages just a tiny bit shorter because the points of the pages may stick out beyond the rounded corners on these pages. So I got this glued down a while that had the ad for the Christmas candies. Storybook page. This I didn't do anything with, but I did cut this side down to size. So that needs something yet. I did get the song papers cut down, and I added washi tape at the spine because this is really thin and I wanted it to be a little bit sturdier there when the thread goes through. Storybook page. Okay, this was that envelope. I took Mod Podge and put a tea bag on here just to give it a little dimension and some texture. This is a nice crinkly page. Added a pocket here, put some staples. Here, let me pull this out a second. Added some staples here, have the pocket, and then we have the pocket on this side, and when that closes, there's a pocket here. And I just added some music paper there. The tea bag I decided to put there because I wrapped it around the edge, and then that also gives that spine some strength rather than just adding the washi paper. So this tea bag comes over past the fold. All right, let's stick this back in here. Then we have this paper. I haven't decided if I'm gonna glue that down or just leave it. Here I put a piece of coffee dyed paper that I had burnt around the edges, and I do have a tutorial on showing you how to do that. It's just a different technique that you can use that does not involve the distress inks. I will link that to this video. It's just done with the little tea light candle. Then I have this. I'm not going to anchor in yet because it doesn't have anything to do with the spine, but I am going to make this a flip out, decorate here, and we can do that after it's sewn in, so I'm not going to bother with that right now. And then again, for this page, I'm not sure. I may glue it down. I do like how the blue looks with this blue there. And then we did talk about the paper bag. Here's another page from the story, the music sheet. This was the pattern paper. And then I made this flip out on here. So I glued down this card and then put that over the top. And then this has a nice flip out there. And then this page was from 1908, has the "We Wish You a Merry Christmas." If you need vintage papers, I do have a vintage paper collection kit for sale in my Ko-fi shop. It's not necessarily going to have any Christmas ones, but if you just need some vintage papers in general, I can link that also. Then I cut apart this paper. It was a big 12 by 12, cut the deer off and adhered it here. And then there's this down here, but I'm going to add a pocket there to hide that part of the deer. And when I glue things in like this, I do keep them away from that spine so that you'll be able to see more of it. If it was the whole way over here at the edge, like right now, it does not look centered. But if it was the whole way over here at the edge and this is getting sewn in, then that is going to end up down in your spine. So I kept it off to the side a little bit. And then that is the last page of that signature. And everything fits in there nice and will fit right in the cover of the book. I also, everything I trimmed off, I kept all of my scraps because I can use that going forward when I start to really add some of the embellishments. All right, so I will get busy on signature 2 and give you a run through on that. We can take a look here at the second signature, and then I will show you how to do the pamphlet stitch and get these sewn into your cover. This, I just added a little card to the front. That's some extra writing space. When I come back and embellish everything, I'll probably put something over here. I got this paper attached to that. I have a sheet of music in here that it was a much larger piece. So I folded up the bottom. Actually, I folded a little tiny fold here and glued it down so that this was a little bit thicker and a little bit more durable for putting things into the pocket. So then I fold that up, and then I added just a piece of strip of distressed paper that will reinforce that spine a little bit when we go to sew through it. Then we have the storybook page, the envelope. This I did take just Scotch tape and put it over the glue that is on the regular envelope, just so over time that it doesn't just start to stick to itself if it would be like in a humid place or anything. So I put some Scotch tape there so that will remain a pocket and not stick down all by itself. Some graph paper, and I had added tape to the spine of that to strengthen that a little. More story page. Cut this 12 by 12 down to size. Don't know what I'm putting here yet. Piece of coffee dyed paper in there. More storybook. Then the center of our signature is this world map. So I Mod Podged Santa on there from a napkin. And it gave me a lot of problems. So I almost wish I would have been filming when I was doing that so I could show you how I fixed it. But my fault, I forgot to pull the napkin apart, and it was a 2-ply napkin, and I put the Mod Podge on, stuck down the napkin, and then it started to come apart. And the first layer of it, the blank layer, actually stuck fast, and the part with the Santa was coming up, and it was a total wrinkled mess at this point. So I decided to pull it all off, and of course not all of it would come up. So what I ended up doing was getting off what I could, and then I took one of my little sanding sticks, and this was after the Mod Podge had dried, and I just sanded around and got off some more of it, and then the rest, I didn't care. I just did it the right way then by peeling apart the ply and got it glued on. And you can feel different places where that first Mod Podge was down, but it doesn't matter. It just adds some more texture to the page. And then it still was kind of white, and I wanted it a little aged, so I did go over Santa and some of the edges a little bit with the dauber. And I will add something here when I do the embellishments. Another story page, the other coffee sheet. Again, another blank one to work with. I made myself a note of what I might want to do on that page. And then the graph, the envelope again. And the other sheet, music, and I will glue that pocket together. And then back here on the back, I found this old Christmas advertisement for a 2-ounce bottle of perfume for $1. So I glued that on there. And what I like to do till I'm ready to actually use the, to actually sew the signatures into the journal, I like to clamp them, but first I find the center and like to just kind of take my ruler and make sure everything's down in there good, bounce it around a little. And the one thing you want to make sure is, now on this one it doesn't matter because everything, like this red envelope, I do want this down at the bottom, but if you have a smaller sheet of paper that you want to stay more center, you're going to have to carefully open it up and readjust that yourself. And then I like to let it sit around for a couple hours at least with some binder clips on, just to try and get that fold trained to where it's going to go. All right, so let me get this cleaned up and get out what we need for the pamphlet stitch. What you're going to need to do the pamphlet stitch is a needle. I have a blunt needle, and you're going to need some thread. This is a waxed thread. If you do not have a waxed thread, you can take what you do have and run it over like a beeswax candle or some type of a candle just to get it waxed if you want. It does make it easier to pull through the paper holes. You can also use embroidery floss, but use several strands of it together. Don't untwist it and just use one single strand of the embroidery floss. So I have this wax thread I picked up at Michael's. The needles I found at the thrift store. And you're going to need, we had made this at the beginning, your little template. You're going to need that. And I'm going to show you the steps to do the pamphlet stitch just using this scrap piece of coffee dye paper. I will sew it right into the journal, and then I'll just cut the threads and pull it back out, and then we will do one of the signatures that I can show you. But it's a little easier to see what I'm doing with just this single sheet of paper rather than me trying to handle all of them. The first thing we're going to do is put these lines on. I don't think we did that at the beginning, so you're going to take the template that you had made and just draw a line and line up the holes. Again, you could measure if you want. I'm, as you know by now, not a measurer. So what that's going to help you do is line up your fold in your paper. I took my dauber and made that fold dark so you can see better what I'm doing. But you are going to want to line the top of this line up with the fold and the bottom of this line up with the fold. Best that you can, doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Then I'm going to use the template holes and put holes here. Now, remember, you're going to do this with a whole stack of signatures when you're doing it. I'm just doing it with one sheet of paper to make it a little easier for you to see what I'm doing. I need to find my text block and poke your holes through all of them. Okay, so now that you have your holes in your signature, I like to sew the back signature in first. So we'll pretend that this is signature 2. We're looking at this set of holes here in the back. You're going to take your thread and just measure 1, 2, 3, and then I usually go maybe like a half yet. I just like to work with it extra long and then go back and trim it if I need to rather than run short. Thread your needle. Once your needle is threaded, then you are going to leave quite a tail. Okay, remember you're working with the back set of holes because we're doing the second signature first. You're going to go down through the middle hole in the signatures and then down through the middle hole in the book, in the cover, and out the other side. You're going to pull that through, and you want to leave a tail there. And I don't think I had mentioned, do not knot anything yet. You're not knotting anything. All right, so now at this point, you can either come up the top or the bottom, which find the hole in my signature. And again, this paper is really big. I didn't measure or cut this. Your tail needs to stay there. You're going to go down the top. And pull it through. And then you're going to come up the middle. Try not to split your thread there. Okay. Now you want to make sure that it's nice and tight. Take a look on this side, make sure it looks good here, nothing's twisted. And then when you come up here, before you knot, you are going to make sure that one side of this end of the string is to the left and the other one is to the right. So this makes like a little bridge right between the two. And then you can pull your needle off. Again, this was way too much because it's just a single piece of paper, and then you're going to knot left over right and then right over left, or however you want to do it. And then if you have enough left, you can even tie a little pretty bow if you want. Okay, so there you have it. That's stuck in there in the signature. And this is what it looks like on the edge. All right, so I'm going to cut this out and get rid of this, and we will start again with one of the signatures, and I'll walk you through it from beginning to end. Now I'm going to show you how I sew a signature in. Remove the binder clips, but don't put them too far away. Again, you want to make sure everything is down in that gutter. Everything's lined up. By now, you should have taken a walk through the entire thing and make sure that all of your papers are right side up, and make sure that your story book papers are in the correct order. So that should have been done by now. So we're gonna get them all in the gutter. And then find the center carefully. And then keeping my hand down in there, I put a binder clip. Once you have everything anchored down nice and tight, you'll need your template again and a pencil or a pen. And you're going to line up the line that we had put on the template with that fold line. And you can see down through the side of the book here. My own camera. There you go. And then we're going to mark it. All right, just want to make sure I can see all those before I move the template. Pencil. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera. Okay. Now I have my text block under here again. Need your pokey tool. Line this up. And we're going to poke right through there. And again, I'm going to have to stand up to do this part, so I will be back with you in a minute. Okay, and you just want to feel through onto the back to make sure that you have gone the whole way through. Then I usually flip it over and take my needle and go in just to make sure that everything is going to slide through. All right, and I did that on top of that text block again. All right, and I did want to mention, people do this different ways as far as when to put the signatures in. Some people just figure out what papers they want to use, clamp them together, sew them into the book, and then finish with all the pockets and embellishments and everything. Some people let the entire thing lay to the side and work on each page at a time and get them completely finished and then sew the book together. I'm kind of in between that, where I looked through and kind of had my thought process as to what I was intending to do with the pages. And if it was some things that I knew needed done ahead of time, such as folding this pocket up and being able to put Scotch tape behind here. So there were quite a few things that I did ahead of time, knowing that it would be easier to do when the pages were loose. But I did not go completely through. This is nowhere near done. I will be adding a lot of pockets and different embellishments to it as I go through. So for right now, we're going to get it sewn in the way that it is. Have my thread again. Do 3 and a little bit, 3 and a half, a little bit, whatever. And don't lose your needle. There it is. Okay, I'm trying to get this threaded again. There we go. Again, don't knot it. Just leave yourself a little room there. And we need the actual book. Again, I'm doing signature number 2, going in the back set of holes. And I leave mine clamped. You would not have to, I guess. All right, and then so I went down through the middle hole, making sure it came out in the back. And then I'm going down through the middle hole in the spine, coming out the other side, pulling it through so I leave a pretty good end here. Then I come up through the top. You don't have to. You could come up through the bottom and completely reverse the whole thing, but I come up through the top, and I usually have to do a little finagling here. You can see why I did a sample one for you on a piece of paper. Okay, and then through the top hole. Get it back up here, lined up. Pull through, check your back here, make sure that everything looks good. Now we're going to go completely down to the bottom. Go through the signature, through the bottom. Make sure you stay on the back set of holes. Pull that through. Still have a nice tail here. Again, make sure everything's lined up nicely. Give it a little tug. And then I'm going back up the center hole and into the center of the spine. And then give everything a nice tug. Check the back again, make sure everything looks good. This looks a little loose to me, so I'm going to go back in here. Give everything a little extra tug, snug, make it a little more snug. And then I ended up coming up on both sides of this piece this time. So we need to tuck this back under. And get rid of the needle at this point. Again, I pull everything, kind of go this way with it, and then just double knot it, or you can do a square knot. Oops, that did not at all. Okay, and then if you want, you can put a little dab of glue on that knot. And then these are long, but I am going to leave them. I'm going to cut a little bit of this off, but I'm going to leave them long until I decide if I want to put beads or anything on here. And then, or I can tie it in a bow. There's lots of things you can do with that, but for now it's going to stay like that. We can take our binder clips off here. Close this up. Look at how we made out here. You can also, as you come through the holes, string beads on there if you want as well. But for this just being a beginner project, we just did it that way. So the next step will be to get the first signature, get the holes poked, and get that sewn in as well. And I will get that done and be back and let you take a look at how that turned out. I did want to jump back on quick and show you this, since this is going to be the first page of the first signature, it's going to get a lot of use. So I decided to reinforce this spine on this fold right here, I should say. And so I just took a piece of coffee dyed paper and glued that on just to give that a little extra strength there. And then also, I don't know if you can see it, this had a rip right here. So I took a little piece of tea bag and used some Mod Podge and glued that on, and we had wrapped it around onto the other side just to reinforce that tear. Okay, I'll get this sewn in and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, it is in. Let's see what we have here. I'll just do a quick run through. If there's any places that you feel like you want to put a little extra drop of glue, you can do that depending on what kind of paper that you had used. You may feel better putting a little blop of glue in there. Just don't close the book up till it dries. I talked about doing some of the things ahead of time. This was one of the reasons I wanted to get this done before the signature was sewn in. That pocket would have been really hard to manage after the pages were sewn in. Got a lot of work to do yet. with the embellishing part, but for the most part, and I still have Post-its different places to remind me to do stuff. Here's where our two signatures come together, and you can see the material that we had put down. This was the extra pocket here, reinforced with some coffee dyed paper, a storybook, center spread, and that brings us to the end. You could, if you want, you could put a piece of trim down through there. If you wanted, you could add pockets back here. I'm leaving these hang out until I decide what I want to do with them. Here's what it ended up looking like on the side. If you don't like being able to see those, you could always have used a piece of scrap material here and then put another piece of material over the top. We could also have, we probably still could punch a hole right here with an eyelet if you wanted to have some strings of beads hang down or tie some ribbons in there, whatever you wanted to do. And so far this one's not real fat, but we don't have all of our embellishments in, so we may come up with some type of a closure to put on it as well. So I'm going to stop this tutorial here, but I am going to have a part 3 where we will add some things to it yet, if you want to come back and take a look at how it turns out. Also in my Ko-fi shop, which is Hickory Art Co at ko-fi.com, I just put these Christmas ones in, little digital kits, and I'm going to be using some of these when we come back to embellish this journal. And I just, my printer here is not real great, so I just upload the file to Staples and have them printed out. You can choose the thickness of paper that you want, and I think to have these print out, what did I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on like a medium weight paper, and it was like $4, I believe. And then I have this one will be up in my Ko-fi shop hopefully later today. This one is just Christmas front doors and porches. And I did some of them in black and white also. So those 2 new kits will be available in my Ko-fi shop. Please join me for part 3. And I appreciate all the subscribers that I have so far. I've been on YouTube for less than a month and trying to get my little channel going here, and we will have lots of art tutorials coming up. I am a former teacher. I taught preschool or pre-kindergarten and kindergarten for, oh my goodness, over 20 years. And around that time, I also was teaching painting classes. My mom had a studio in the lower level of her home, and we did a lot in the art studio. So doing this, I'm able to combine my love of teaching and my love of art, and we'll get into some painting at some point as well, maybe painting some embellishments to go in the junk journals. So please hit that subscribe button, and I appreciate you taking part of your day to spend with me. Thank you.